Well, let's talk now to human rights activist and Executive Director of Access Chapter 2, Steve Letsike. Good evening to you and welcome. Altogether, it's a day that went off without a hitch, right?
Indeed, thank you so much. Good evening to the viewers of SABC. The Pride March did take place, and I think there has been a resilient show by South Africans, by many LGBT people in the space, coming out, to embrace pride and embrace themselves. And I think everything went well. And then we're hoping actually this kind of assurance and the kind of protection and security we can take it to township this time around.
Well, what was your impression of the turnout and the vibrancy normally associated with this event?
No, indeed. I mean, look, the turnout was quite overwhelming because as much as people were in fear, but people expressed their resilience, expressed their, frustration. Look, we put our bodies, we put our lives, at risk in this case, knowing very well what potentially might happen. It's something that we cannot necessarily take for granted that people came out just to be themselves. I think one of the most important things is really the idea that we cannot entertain homophobia, transphobia, and even the threat, whichever meaning it had behind it. But we cannot do it in the cost of our life. Enough is enough.
And I think, touching on the points that you're raising there, which really goes to the heart of what a march like this is for. On the one hand, it is about a claiming of space. It is about pride. It is about evangelizing, in a sense, the message. But this year's theme, what did it mean for the LGBTIQA plus community? What were the key focal issues that they wanted the rest of society to be made aware of and conscious to?
Look, I think the most important thing is to realize that LGBTI people continue to be discriminated, stigmatized. In the workplace, at home, in community, people are subjected to conversion practices. And I think also just to add, the violation that is happening in the workplace, what we've seen in the last 2-3 weeks, a rise of suicide of teenage queer persons. I mean, we are saying that not in our country where we have a constitution. When the Simon Collins refugees and King Peter's march in 1990, they were fighting for these fundamental rights. And here we are, 33 years later, we are still fighting for these fundamental rights. Where did we go wrong in our policy implementation, program implementation? Did we go wrong where actually people should be equally enjoying the rights by virtue of being human? And we cannot accept and be quiet or be silent, even with the attempt of the terror attack, where there was a threat to be silent, because that would have meant that people should not come out during Pride. So the themes about celebrating who we are, about embracing who we are, but also recognizing people we lost. The privilege of hosting this incentive is also acknowledging the privilege or the politics rather of what it means to host a site like this even in township. So we realize and we have to know the inequalities that exist, but we cannot shy away that we will be who we are everywhere, whether in the middle class communities or whether in the township, in the rural areas, we still will stand with LGBTI everywhere.
And finally, to go back to the fun in a sense, Steve, what else is planned for the rest of the evening, or is that it for the day?
Look, I think always Pride is an exciting moment. It's celebration. It will not stop here. People are going to different places, to queer establishments that are happening. We've seen political parties that have come out strongly. The ANC came out very strongly in the forefront, and other parties that came out. So the idea here is that we continue the celebration. But what is key is post this weekend is going back, educating, claiming back the economy, and making sure that we do justice to the LGBTI community, to vulnerable populations, to women and girls in their diversity.
Thank you so much for updating us. Human rights activist and Executive Director of Access Chapter 2, Steve Letsike.